You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for a special edition of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, we are a couple of days away from the midterm elections, and I just thought that it'd be so cool to have a surprise special guest, someone that you all have heard about over the past several months as we've been gearing up for what is going to be a very consequential election. But what is great is I thought to myself, I've interviewed, during the primaries, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, who of course is the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate. But so many of you all have asked me about his wife, who is the slop, who is the second lady of Pennsylvania. And it's so exciting to have Gisele Fetterman on. Welcome to Ernestly Speaking.
Thank you. So happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much. So for starters, how are you feeling? It's literally days away from the election. Like, we are counting down the hours, the minutes. I mean, it's close.
I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I have a countdown on my phone, so I too know exactly how many minutes are left. But energized. The energy everywhere we go is unbelievable. So very optimistic and just ready for the day to be here because I need a nap.
Yeah, it's funny because I would say outside of the reporters having to cover it, anyone connected to the campaign, especially family and the candidates, are having the same experience, and it's like every minute by minute, I'm getting press releases from your camp, like every day, in addition to everything on social media and all of that. And so it's a lot going on. For starters, I guess before we get into the gist, everyone's been asking this question to me. It's so random. So I had the opportunity to have dinner with what many will say soon to be Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis and his wife Blair, who's also live in the Pittsburgh area near your husband and yourself. And I'm wondering, she said that she would not adopt the title slop, but we always want to know, how did that come about? I haven't heard anyone use it before. How did that come around? How did you embrace that title, and how did that happen? Because everyone sees it on social and they're like, what is this?
Sure. So I went to sleep Gisele, and then I woke up to ma'am. Suddenly everybody was calling me ma'am. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't ready to be nobody's ma'am. And I thought, well, before I was second lady, I really had no idea who was second lady or what that role was. And how can I make this now kind of stuffy ma'am role into something fun and accessible? And that's how I gave birth to slop, because I thought, how funny and how unflattering is this title? I love it.
Yes. And, a little bit of background, people have, heard your story. I read the Teen Vogue profile recently and was like, wow, it's so much to know. So, you're from Brazil originally, and there's so much going on in Brazil with their elections in a positive way. And I said on Twitter, this could be us November 8th. How do you feel about what's going on in Brazil? I mean, it must be interesting to see that transformational election happen right before another transformational election that could happen days away. How did that feel?
I said leading into Brazil's election, because Brazil had a runoff, so it's like this emotional drain twice. Right. I'm like, I can't handle two elections in Brazil. Plus, this election is too much for me. But Brazil went a very good way. I was very happy with the results. We pushed back against MAGA, right? Essentially in Brazil, right. Fascism, and to see the country unite that way was great. It was difficult seeing Brazil lead, America's footsteps by electing Bolsonaro after seeing our country elect Trump. But it just shows that those extremism forces are seeping in nationally. We're seeing what happened in Italy. Right. So in the midst of all the scary things, there is optimism. Lula was a great win for the people, for the Amazon, for equal rights, for everything. So I'm optimistic that we're going to go that way as well.
Me too. I do sense that. I do feel like I've been looking at the polls, and there was a lot of, I'm writing something coming out soon, but this whole idea about the debate, there was a lot of conversation about the debate. And, I tell people, raise a hand if anybody walked out of that situation changing who they were going to vote for. I didn't. I even felt more convicted. When I think about the results, I mean, people were like, oh, well, did this debate hurt Fetterman? I mean, he got over $1 million in fundraising in less than 12 hours.
2 million.
2 million.
Number went up to
two, not one, but two, right? And, it seems to be like it was not what people assumed it to be. There was a lot of presumptions, and it just seemed to be different. And there's just a poll that just came out that still has Fetterman in the lead by a margin, by like 4 percentage points a week after the debate. And so what do you think about sometimes the level of political pundits and individuals like that who oftentimes, weigh in, but the people match differences? Because you was in the same position during the primaries. There was a lot of
That's what I was going to say. Yep. During the
Yeah.
primaries, there was one person who called it. And who was it? Who was it? I'm talking to him right now. Everyone else said something else. You said one thing, and then John won all 67 counties.
He won all.
So every single county. So I think, I think these people, have a show, they have a platform, they want to share, and that's fine. It's their right to do so. But what really matters at the end of the day is how people vote. And, what you saw at the debate is that you saw a human being. You saw a person who is healing for the world to watch. And that's a really special place for any of us to be in, to get to be that close to seeing someone healing. Most people get to do that in private. Right. Every 40 seconds, someone has a stroke. So if someone you love hasn't had one yet, they will, because statistically, that's how common strokes are. And
it is.
He shared a glimpse of that with the entire world, and how brave, Yeah,
and I think what is important is that one thing I've told people too is this, like, again, if people who live with a stroke, it does not impact their cognitive ability to be a good thinker, to be productive. There's things such as a speech impediment, things that happens in those recovery phases. But there's many people we know amongst us in Philadelphia. Patty Jackson was a legendary radio, icon, great friend of mine. She, suffered a stroke, and then, here she is now, alive, well, hosting her show. She didn't stop a beat, and there's a lot of misperceptions. And so I was very taken aback by the ableism of some people who just didn't simply educate themselves. And even people who, claim to be doctors, like Dr. Oz, that was being very insensitive and problematic in so many different ways. And there's been a lot going on over there on that other side. I just saw the recent news release that came out. There's been a lot of issues that has been happening. Dr. Oz, has, a lot of issues for women, for other groups, and his hit home. I'm Black and gay. I've been married for a year, and what I've told a lot of people who keep assuming that the repeal against Roe v. Wade will not hit marriage equality, and it was really annoying this week to find out that Dr. Oz held a campaign rally at a venue that banned same-sex marriage. And I shouldn't be shocked, because I'm not shocked, right? But what's even interesting, though, the other side of that is that around the same time, you and John officiated a same-sex marriage in his rally in Butler County 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then and this is what he do. So it's weird to the point I'm making, that it's so weird that people, I don't believe there's an undecided voter in this race. I've said that I think the real undecided voters are the voters who are debating whether or not to turn up or show up to the polls. I don't think are splintered. I haven't spoken to anyone this cycle. Now, the primaries, because it was amongst Democrats, right? There are people that were undecided, and you all had to win, but the counties didn't seem to be that undecided. But, I talk to people now, and no one I'm talking to is like, I don't know which one I should go with. it's more like, I don't know anyone who's saying that. What has been big is that this is a numbers game, and these contrasts, I think, shows that this is night and day. I mean, have you spoken to anyone who said they're undecided about voting for either candidate, or undecided about whether they are motivated? Like, what is this? Are you landing? Are you out there? You guys are going to every county. Is there an undecided voter you're talking to?
No, and I think you nailed it again. It's the showing up. You can't be undecided about two people that are complete opposites, right?
Right.
John was willing to die on the Hill fighting for marriage equality. You have someone who basically co-signs by hosting events at places that reject same-sex couples. You have someone who believes that, your choice, your reproductive choice is between you and a doctor, and that's it. And we have someone who, one, calls it murder, and two, things that local elected officials, like your tax collector and your mayor and your whatever, should make those decisions for you. I mean, it's on every issue, it is completely night and day. If you look at immigration, we believe in compassionate immigration. Oz was fined. He had to pay the largest fine in the history of ICE for exploiting undocumented workers.
Right.
We have two rescue puppies that I literally warm up their food and hand feed them. This is a man who was responsible for experiments that killed over 300 dogs. Right. So on every single issue, you couldn't get more night and day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think, I've argued that since 2012, which was 10 years ago, of course, I felt like the last race where people could have arguably said they were undecided was probably between President Barack Obama and Senator Mitt Romney. I personally was not divided on that, clearly, but I could see a fair argument for some people that might have said, hey, I want to look at both of them. I know that both of them will not be aligning themselves with insurrectionists, that they will respect the outcomes of an election, which is what happened. When Obama won his second term, you didn't hear Mitt Romney saying the results are not real. I'm not going to deny it. They're already denying, they're preparing to lose. I've heard, some interesting people across the country, candidates on the right, saying that they may or may not respect the results of the election, which is kind of almost feeling as though that's a defeatist mindset. It's almost as if they're preparing to lose. Right. I get the sense that it's almost like they're sensing it. I mean, polls are always up and down, but the fever, the crowd sizes, you can't make up crowd size.
Right. I mean, thousands, no matter where we go, over 3,000 people in Montgomery County on a game night, right? And speaking of insurrectionists, since you mentioned, only one candidate has staff made up of insurrectionists.
Yeah,
and it ain't us.
No, and that's and so how do you? I mean, you're not saying you're encountering undecided voters. I wonder to myself, if there used to be a time where you would go out to a city or a town that outside the primaries, right, the general elections, and you would hear people say, "Oh, well, this person has this and this," but it's really hard, to hear anyone say, "Well, the insurrection thing, no big deal. Okay, 300 dogs, no big deal." It's just polar opposites. It's just there's no middle. I haven't, like I said, it's people who are supporting Oz are very much invested in a certain type of America. Not one that I personally that I could live in. But I think the interesting thing that's been really big to me lately is the conversations around voter turnout, getting the people out there, the ones that rallying up the base, right? Just for numbers. In 20, everyone always questions, can Pennsylvania go blue? We had, right? Pennsylvania went blue in 2020 when Biden ran for president. When I looked at the numbers in cities like Philadelphia is a largely Democratic city. And interesting enough, people never would thought that Philadelphia County would support a candidate that was not from Philly. But I told them that, if you look at the platform that Fetterman has. I think it's a very Philadelphia platform, a very Pittsburgh platform, a very Elizabethtown platform. It's a platform for Pennsylvania. And it doesn't ignore Philadelphia values, and it doesn't ignore the rest of the Commonwealth. I mean, he won here for lieutenant governor previously. People forget that detail. There were Philadelphians running for lieutenant governor, and he won that too. And right now, where we're at, I look back at the different polls. So 2020, Biden got a large number of Philadelphia, more than Hillary did, and that took him to the top. Clearly, there is going to be, to me, it's a numbers game. I don't think there's an undecided voter. I think mostly it's getting people out to the polls, exciting them. I've read that there are grassroots efforts across the state. You all have former President Barack Obama in Pittsburgh over the weekend. I mean, you got Biden out, Kamala, VP Kamala Harris. You got a lot of people out here. What is the plan to get voters out? I mean, I don't think I've seen the TV ads, and I must say that it's so many ads. But I always like, there's Gisele, there's family ads, there's different ads, And so I think I've memorized the verbiage from each ad because they play so much. But I've wondered, what is the plan outside the ads and the TVs? Because I know there's going to be a lot of ads on TV, but what are you all doing between now and then to really get people just to come out? You have Fetterman supporters. There are people that clearly support you all, but making sure that person who's, wearing that hoodie or got that sticker is going to actually go to the polls. What is the game plan? For
right. And I'm sorry for all the commercials. It's a lot. Even my kids are like, I can't watch this anymore.
But what's funny? Every time I watch, it's because the opposition has a lot of ads. A lot of your opponent also is putting a lot of money in ads. I think what was the last thing? I don't think during the primary, Malcolm didn't really run any ads. Barely. He didn't have any money. Connor Lamb, did a couple ads, but Fetterman just had it. This time around, I sometimes will watch and I'll see an extreme ad by Dr. Oz, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. And then a Fetterman ad will come on. I'm like, okay, there's a counter. Okay, all right, I can breathe.
It's a lot, and they've spent $100 million on attacking John. $100 million, and I think about, I work in nonprofit. I think about what good could be done with that money. So it's devastating to think of that. But, we have a ton of volunteers that are making sure that if you got a ballot, we're calling you to make sure that you filled it out the right way, that you mailed it, that you signed it. So we have folks working on that. We have a huge energy on the ground where we are, text banking, a lot of events like having former President Barack Obama in Pittsburgh and in Philly to energize and remind.
When is he coming to Philly? Is he coming to Philly?
I'll text you.
Okay, please. All right. Please. It's not going to be this weekend, is it? Is it going to be this weekend? It is. I know what day. Okay. Because I'm going to Dallas, but that's early on. But I'll be around. We'll okay, perfect. Yeah. So right. I didn't know that. The more you learn. So
it's all happening very fast. It's all happening fast.
There's always something happening. I feel like that's what it was. Biden and Harris was just came, and there's something going on the entire time. It's every time you turn around, there's something. There's a new surprise. There's a new story. Like the insurrectionist staff story. I thought we were doing October surprises, but now I guess November is still happening, and you all are still working. And so on Tuesday, I know so in Philadelphia there is a tradition. On Tuesday with Ryan Boyer and the Laborers, they have a special on WRD Radio, and we're in Philly and we talk to candidates. You all be in Pittsburgh on Tuesday. The same like the primaries. I mean, when Fetterman won, I think I was one of the first people you had called or FaceTimed, actually.
We FaceTimed, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm Team Android, but I made it work through Facebook video.
Uh-huh.
What is that experience going to be like on Tuesday? What do we think the results are going to come in on time? What are your thoughts about Tuesday? What is Tuesday looking like in general? Is there going to be a lot of I mean,
so I don't know. I'm very much today. Like I try to get through each day. I try not to look
yeah.
too far away, but I know Tuesday I'm going to go vote. I'm going to work at the free store. And then, in the evening we'll have the election party, and hopefully it's something that the results come in that same day, same evening. Hopefully it's not something that lingers, because I want a really good nap on the
That's
9th.
right.
I want to look a good cry, a good sleep, and then a little break.
No,
But
absolutely.
I'll FaceTime you though, like we
Yes,
did. Traditions.
definitely. Yes, definitely will. This is a cycle. I haven't followed a race that has been, I will say, a race that has been as engaged with different media, and it's well appreciated because, a lot of Senate races, they'll just talk to, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the major players. They don't go podcast, but you all have definitely embraced different campaign approaches. What are some of the things? I mean, the social media game has been, just talked about across the board. The team has people engaging different communities, different types of media platforms. It's unheard of. I mean, what is the, in your own way, in your own thoughts, make this campaign unique compared to other races, and what can other future candidates like that aspire to the type of political agenda and aspirations as Fetterman learn from that? Like, what are the unique things about this campaign that you think that, because you're creating a blueprint, if he wins on Tuesday, this is the modern day. I've told people this. I think this is the modern day election. This is the modern day campaign. This is what Democrats got to do to win. They can't sleep on any county. They can't ignore different voices within this political space. I do find myself to be a different voice in my own way, but it's not always embraced. It doesn't get access as much. But I must say that because of candidates like John and his surrogates and other people, you all have definitely embraced that and have made it the new model for people like myself. Because to your point, I did predict that. And a lot of people ignore me because they were like, oh, what does he know? He's not been here for 5,000 years. He's some, millennial that's just talking. And when that happened, it changed, everything. And, what is that? What do you think makes that different? Those types of experiences. What do you think makes the campaign unique? And you want people to know.
I think, I think you can run a campaign and be fun, have a good time and not be a jerk. Like in the primary, we were the only candidate that didn't attack our opponents. You can run a race on issues and record and not be unkind to each other. And that's really something that we do. We have a lot of fun, but we're not mean. And I think that's really important to change the dynamics of politics. We got so used to mean, and it doesn't have to be that way. But also, like, we have an amazing team. We have a TikTok. We have a ton of young people who are so creative, who know our voice and have fun with how they know we see the world and how we would want our message to be shared. So, I think it's really important to have a staff that's really diverse in age and experience and background, and utilize all the platforms available to you. I talk to little kids in schools. I visit them and read books to them. And I really enjoy that, not as in politics, but just as a person.
Right.
But it's about not ignoring any one platform. High school kids are voting, right? They're turning 18, they're registering.
Yeah, my
it's about
brother's
engaging.
19. Yeah, my brother's 19 at Temple. He's a sophomore. And I'm like, yeah, you can vote now. So now I can tell you these things and you can do them now. Because for many years, he knew I was covering politics and knew all that. But, he had no role at the time. But now he can. His friends can. His roommates can. And it's like very like, wow, this is real. And they see the TikTok. They do. Mm-hmm. It comes up on their feed. And I'm like, wait, you know who that is? They're like, yeah, this is, I'm like, wow. But it's all about how you all are doing this unconventional tapping into different voters, not sleeping on them. I think that played a role in the primaries.
Definitely, yeah. We always said 67 counties. Our logo on the shirt said every county, every vote. It wasn't. It was a promise, right? It was a promise that we were going to every county and going for every vote and not writing people off. We don't care how you voted historically. Right. I don't care how you usually vote. Let's have a conversation. Listen to what we have to offer. and be open to that. And we don't believe in writing anybody off. And I think that was a key part in John's race.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess in wrapping up, I know you have a lot going on. You have a busy schedule, and this interview just kind of happened, right? And it's like, I love a special edition. They love a special edition. It's always fun to have a surprise. No one expected this interview coming. I didn't say anything. I was like, okay. I mean, it's interesting because we were like, what? How did that happen? So what is one thing you want voters to know in general? Like this is, you're talking to voters and across the Commonwealth listening to Ernestly speaking. What is something you just want voters to know about yourself, about this election? And what is if you could, like, what they call like elevator pitch, but what do you want voters to know before they go? Like, there's someone right now sitting undecided, not on a candidate, but on whether or not they really need to go to the polls. Like if people say, well, he's doing good in the polls, I don't need to go, he'll be all right. Like that's how some people felt during the primary. It was like, I mean, the primaries just was like, it was a sweep. But this isn't that kind of race. This is a race that can happen, can change if people show up. If people show up, it can be guaranteed. It's not guaranteed unless everybody do their part. But in your own words,
right?
Yeah,
nothing is guaranteed unless you show up. Right? We can do this, and any part of any demographic that you're a part of, whether that's young people, whether that's immigrants, Latinos, whatever it is, your demographic has the power to elect the next candidates. Like that's how powerful you are with your numbers. And, it's easy to get discouraged by the world, by what's happening and get upset about it, but you can play an actual part in deciding the leaders who represent you. You can do this, but you have to make sure to vote. And if you do all vote, you're choosing the future that you want for yourself and for the next generations. This is a 6-year position. The next 6 years is who we get. And, John has a doctor in his life who mocks someone who had a stroke, who has done terrible things, right? And that doctor will be in everyone's lives for the next 6 years if you don't get out to vote. And that's a scary thought, right? That if you put it in that perspective, that's a scary thought. And, Roe v. Wade.
6 years. Like 6 years. Presidents only have 4-year terms. Senators,
right. A long time. And, Roe v. Wade is not the bottom. That's the beginning, what they're going after. Marriage equality is next, and they're going to push as much as they can to see what they can get. And extremism is dangerous. And this is what we have. This is what we're up against. But, don't assume that it's going to go a certain way. We need your action, your votes, your neighbors, everybody to get out there and do it.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking out the time to talk, of course, and election. I mean, I never thought I have been able to interview both Fettermans, which is a fun opportunity. I interviewed John right before the end of the primaries. I get to interview you. And I mean, what do you expect? I mean, what is life like? I mean, I know you say you're taking it day by day, but like, what is that? What does the future hold for you? What do you look forward to doing?
I love the work I do in nonprofit. I know that my work, it's filling a need where policy has failed. I'd love to see better policy to address, food insecurity, food waste, working families. That's really where my passion is. So I hope to always be able to do that work. And if my platform changes slightly, I'll just get to do it on a little slightly larger level. But that's really the work that I'm passionate about. It's access work. Ensuring that everyone is a part of the conversation and everyone gets to contribute.
Awesome. Oh, wow. Well, thank you. I mean, it's so funny. It's the same question I was asking Blair Davis was like, oh, why aren't you running for office? And I was looking at you like, why aren't you run for office? But no, it's so funny. You guys are both so talented. Like, we haven't seen this many political power couples in like forever, in a while. And the excitement and the energy is there. And I think, you have a fan base. A lot of people are like super like excited to see you, and you also engage the spotlight. You embrace the followers and the people that do. So are you planning to go out? I guess election day, you're going to be out there.
I will. I'll vote. Like I said, I have a free store 15104 shift in the morning, and we'll probably visit different polling places. And just I'm letting the kids cut school that day.
Oh, wow.
They're getting the day off. I'll probably do something fun with them. And then just counting down, making sure everybody turns out.
Well, I hope they do. I definitely do, because the stakes, everyone says that the stakes are too high. This is really a high stakes election. And even as someone who's been covering it, like, this is really we're down to the final days. So as always, thank you so much for taking this time for this interview. And, where can people follow you on social? I mean, I don't think it's hard to find you, but where can people find you on social? Just follow everything.
Sure. On Instagram, I'm just GFett, Fett. Twitter, Gisele Fetterman. I'm not great at Facebook.
Right. But everyone's like not doing Facebook. We're trying to hold on to Twitter as long as we can.
But I don't know how much longer. But yes, currently Twitter and Instagram are the best places.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. As always, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And as always, everyone, the elections are coming up. I don't have to sell anyone on this podcast to listen, to vote, because, at the end of the day, what do we have if we don't? But if you were sleeping on the couch and contemplating, don't be undecided. Make sure you show up November 8th. Exercise your right to vote as always, and do your thing. So as always, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.